Welcome back, friends. Today I'm doing something a little bit different with my Gelli prints. I recently had a poll asking what you would like me to do more with my prints, and it was tied 50-50, well 36 to 36 with card making and mixed media tags. So today I'm going to make a card with my Gelli prints that I had made recently, and these are just some of the prints I had picked out. It wasn't all the prints that I had made in that video that I will link below. I'm going to make a mini slimline card. If you don't know what a mini slimline card is, it's basically 7 inches by 3.5 inches. I used an 8.5 by 11 piece of light gray cardstock, cut that down, and then I have the remaining cardstock here, and I'm going to cut that down to the 3.5 by 7.5 inch, and that's going to it's going to be overlapping just a little bit, and that's how I'm going to adhere this card to make it open. So this is going to be a gatefold card. I'm going to score 1/4 inch on each side of the 7.5 cardstock piece. I'm using my Martha Stewart scoreboard just to help give me straight lines. And by scoring it, it makes the folds a little bit nicer. If you don't have a scoreboard, you can still use a score tool and just score next to the lines of the 7-inch mark, just centering it. Then you just fold your flaps in, press them down with your score tool. And now you have the base of your card ready to assemble. To make the design for the card, I'm using these 2 Gelli prints. I cut them down, but I need to cut them down a little bit more. I'm figuring out what part I want to show on the card. So I definitely want to get rid of this white space on this one side. And I will keep my scraps. I'll probably incorporate those with some of the embellishments for the finishing parts of the card. I'm just lining it up with my base, and then I'll trim the excess with my paper trimmer. This card is inspired by Jennifer McGuire. She is the one that suggested this mini-sized slimline card, so I will link the video below that I got my inspiration from. Thank you, Jennifer McGuire. Then for my next piece that will go onto the top of this one, I'd already trimmed it down just a little bit, so it's smaller than the green, and I'm going to make that one the same size, 3.5 inches. And those are going to layer up just centered into each other like this, and then I'll center those onto the card base. Next, I cut out 2 circles, a 2 3/4 inch by a 2.5 inch. I cut the 2.5 inch out of the center, so I have a frame, and then I'm using the 2 3/4 inch circle to cut some vellum. And then I couldn't decide. I wanted to emboss my vellum, but I didn't know which embossing folder I wanted to use. So I cut some strips of vellum and embossed them just to see what they look like, because it does distort the see-through quality of the vellum depending on which one you use. So I thought this was a good way to kind of test to see which one I liked. I picked 4 embossing folders to choose from, and I held them all up to the background to see which ones I could see through and which ones I liked. And I liked this kind of puffy, flowery looking one the best. So I embossed my circle with that 3D embossing folder. And then I have my little frame that will go over the top of it. I wanted a sentiment, so I used this die cut set. This is from Spellbinders Smooth Lines Mix and Match Sentiments. I cut out the word hello with my scraps. And that's just going to go centered onto my vellum circle. Now I wanted to add a little bit of color to the frame. I wasn't sure what color would look best, so I did a little sample piece here, mixing my faded jeans and black soot. I also did some on my vellum sample, just to see if I liked the colors. The faded jeans was a little bit too bright, so adding the black to the faded jeans gives the black a little more bluish color, which matches that background blue a little bit better. So what I'll start with is the card base that I'm going to be layering these 2 green and blue pieces onto. I'll just start by adding the faded jeans just around the corners that are going to be showing. Then I'll add the black soot over the top. These 2 colors make a really pretty gray tone, and it goes nicely as a darker shade of gray over this light gray cardstock. I'll do the same thing to the frame. And then the vellum piece, I was trying to decide if I wanted to add the distress ink or not, so I decided to just add it on the edges and leave the center part the vellum color, and not go over that with the colors. This creates almost a vignette. Now it's time to assemble. I'm going to glue my frame to the vellum piece. I'll glue my hello words to the center of the vellum. I'm using my Eileen's tacky glue. This is nice because I can kind of move my pieces around before they're secured, especially on this 3D embossing folder texture. I kind of had to press in a little bit. The word hello got lost against the background, so I added black words over the top and just used the green as a shadow. Then I glued my blue jelly print to the top of my green jelly print, centered. And then I centered the green jelly print onto my card base background. Next, I cut my piece in half. This is going to create my gatefold. And then my sentiment is only going to be glued to one side. So I'm just putting glue on half of my circle. And then I'll glue that in the center. Then for the inside of my card, I just cut out a piece of white cardstock, Nina White 110-pound cardstock. Glued that to the center. And then for more of my little scrap jelly print pieces, I went ahead and used this We Are Memory Keepers arrow punch, and then some green. I glued that onto the side of this little blue piece, trimmed it, and then I'll glue that on one side here of the inside of my card. For the back side, I do like to put my stamp. This is from Amazon. I'll link in the description where I got this stamp from, if you have a logo, or even if you wanted to stamp something like homemade by and your name. And then I just glued my little 1/4 inch pieces down on the back side of my card base. And here is the card complete. Opens gatefold style. Sits on the table nicely. And the hello is nice because you can see through it on the side that isn't glued down. And you can also see the design a little bit through it. Next, we need to make an envelope. So this is a brayer off sheet that I have. I wanted to make sure it would fit around my card, so I did fold it first, just making sure it was big enough. And it was big enough to fit. I'm going to make a coin envelope. So to do that, you just fold in the two sides. One side is going to be a little bit bigger than the other side. I wanted round corners, so I used my envelope punch board by We Are Memory Keepers and just used the part that will do the corner rounding. And next I'll trim away the extra pieces, basically the 4 corners. I used some brads to make my closure. These are from Recollections, just some fabric brads. The top part was overlapping just a little, so I cut away a little triangle. That way my brad will fit. I stuck my brad in, and so that it doesn't get caught on my card when I try to put it in, I put a piece of tape over it. Then I just put some glue on the top flap, tucked it underneath my brad, and then hole punched a circle at the top, stuck in another brad, and I used washi tape to conceal this brad. It also gives it a little bit extra strength, being that it's the flap of the envelope. I glued the bottom part closed and made sure my card fit, and it fits perfectly. Next, we need the string. I'm just using this white and gold twine from Michaels. It's part of their Christmas collection. I did a double knot just so the knot wouldn't come undone. Trimmed the excess piece off, and then I wanted to be able to go around my brad about 2 full times. So then I just trimmed off the rest of the twine. And here is my coin envelope. I would like to decorate this just a little bit. I've got a gold marker, paint marker, that I just made some dots on the front. And then on the flap of the envelope, I just did some lines. And that just kind of makes it a little bit neater looking and a little more homemade. And I can stick my card in. And to seal it, you just wrap the twine around the brads and you have a perfectly sealed envelope. If you do this in the mail, I would suggest putting it into a plastic sleeve and then shipping it out that way, just to protect everything inside and making sure no one else would open it. But you could also tuck this into a larger envelope, like a a business size envelope, and I'm sure it would fit nicely in there because of the size, being a mini slimline card. Let me know in the comments, do you like making slimline cards or regular A2 size cards? I'd love to hear from you. So that is my card for today. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, happy crafting, y'all.